All right, so you're getting ready for an IT support interview. That's awesome. But yeah, it's tough out there. That's why we're diving into this Randstad UK guide, the one about IT support interview questions. It's going to get you ready not just with knowledge, but also with confidence.
Yeah, this guide is serious business. It's
Yeah.
got it all. Technical questions, personality stuff, what to do in different situations you might face, even how to handle those questions that are specific to the company.
Wow, it's like they took everything about IT support and put it all in one place.
hmm
We got a lot to go through, so let's just get right to the technical stuff.
Yeah, it's good to remember that even though personality is important, you still got to prove you know your stuff. And this guide is packed with questions they might ask you.
Right, like it's not just about knowing what DHCP stands for, which, by the way, is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol.
But could you explain, like, how it actually works? And even more, what would you do if, say, your home Wi-Fi suddenly stopped working? You need that kind of deep understanding, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, I feel like I'm already being tested. But yeah, that makes sense. It's one thing to memorize a bunch of definitions, but it's totally different to actually use them in the real world. So what other kind of tricky tech questions do we need to be ready for?
Okay, there was one that really stuck out to me. It was about, get this, the disadvantages of using imaging software. Most people will just talk about the good stuff, how it makes setting up systems fast and all. But if you can see the downsides, it shows you really understand it, you know?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like,
Mm.
sure, imaging is great if you're setting up a ton of computers, but what if, say, there's a problem in the master image?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Now that same problem is on all your systems.
Exactly. If you can point that out, it shows you're thinking critically, not just repeating stuff you memorized. That's the kind of thinking interviewers are looking for.
Okay, I'm feeling the pressure now. What else can we learn from this tech gold mine?
Okay, here's one that's more visual, something most people don't think about. Those little lights on your modem or LAN card, they're not just there to look pretty. Each one tells you something about what's going on with your network connection.
Wait, for real. I always thought they just meant like, hey, it's plugged in.
Nope, not at all. You've got the power light, yeah, but then there's the link light. That one shows if your modem is actually talking to your internet provider. And then you've got the data light. That tells you if the internet's actually working. And then there's the connectivity light, letting you know if your modem's connected to your computer.
Hold on. So if my internet goes down, those lights could actually tell me if it's my modem, my connection, or even my computer. That's actually pretty useful. Knowing that could save so much time when you're trying to figure out what's wrong.
Exactly. It's that kind of practical knowledge that can really impress an interviewer. They'll be like, wow, this person really gets it. But of course, IT support is about way more than just the technical stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I bet those soft skills are just as important, maybe even more so, in an interview. So let's get into that part of the guide. What kind of questions are they going to ask to figure out our personality?
This is where it gets personal. They're trying to figure out what you're like, how you handle stress, and if you'd be a good fit for their company, you know, the whole vibe.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But how do they do that just by asking questions? It's not like they're going to straight up ask, are you secretly a robot? Although that would be kind of a fun question to answer.
Right. Instead, they use these clever questions, you know, like you wouldn't even realize how much they reveal about you. For example, I remember interviewing someone once. They were great with the technical stuff, but then I asked, how do you feel about your abilities as a manager? And they just froze.
Oh, interesting. They were probably thinking, wait, I'm not applying to be a manager here.
Exactly. But that question isn't really about whether you've been a manager before. It's about showing you have leadership qualities, even if it's an entry-level job.
So even if you haven't officially been a manager, you could talk about times you led a project, or when you took charge and did something without being asked, or even how you handled a conflict on a team.
Exactly. It's about showing how your past experiences have helped you develop those skills.
Okay, that's really helpful.
Mm.
What other tricky personality questions did this guide mention?
Well, there was one that seemed really simple, but it's kind of a trap. What is your least favorite aspect of desktop support? Feels kind of dangerous, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like if they're trying to get you to say something bad about your old jobs or admit some big weakness you have.
Totally. But the trick is how you answer it. Everyone has parts of their job they don't love, right? The key is to be honest without, like, making yourself look bad.
So what's the best way to answer that? So you just make something up?
No way. Being real is really important. But what you can do is focus on things outside of yourself, not personal flaws. For example, you could talk about how frustrating it is when you have to use outdated technology and it limits what you can do for people. Or maybe how some software is just badly designed and makes things harder.
Ooh, that's smart. You're basically saying you see the problems, but you're already thinking about how to fix them, not just complaining.
You got it. It turns the conversation from negative to positive, like you're a problem solver. That's a great impression to make.
All right, so we've covered the technical stuff and the personality stuff. What's next on the list for totally rocking this interview?
Now, this is where things get kind of interesting. This next part of the guide is all about those scenario-based questions, where they put you right on the spot to see how you think under pressure.
Oh, this sounds intense.
All right.
Like, are they going to throw us into some crazy IT emergency and see if we can handle it? Like, the network's down, aliens are invading, what do you do?
Well, maybe not that dramatic. But hey, you never know, right? It's more about those everyday problems that come up in IT. Like a classic one they might ask is, a customer says their computer is running slow. What do you do?
Okay, yeah, I can see that happening. I've definitely been the one calling for help with that before. But there could be so many reasons why a computer is slow. Where do you even start?
That's when having a system is really important. Instead of just jumping into it, you got to gather information first, like a detective. Ask questions like, when did it start running slow? Or is it all programs or just some of them?
So you're not just trying to fix it right away. You're taking time to really understand what's going on.
Exactly. It shows you're being methodical, which is super important in IP. Then you can move on to some basic checks, like how long does it take to start up? Is there enough space on the hard drive? Are there any viruses or malware hiding on the computer?
It's like you're going through a checklist in your head to figure out what's wrong.
Exactly. That's what you want to do. Having that structure shows the interviewer you can handle things calmly and efficiently, even when it's crazy.
Okay, that makes sense for like technical problems.
Mhm.
But what about those scenarios where you have to deal with, let's just say, a difficult person?
Yes. The difficult customer question. They almost always ask something like, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult person and how you handled it.
Oh, yeah. That one makes me nervous just thinking about it. It's like, you want to be honest, but you don't want to badmouth anyone. How do you even answer that?
Right. This is where the STAR method comes in. It stands for situation, task, action, and result. It's basically a way to tell a story that shows off your skills.
Okay, I'm listening. How would you use that star thing to answer that question?
Okay, let's say you've got a customer who's really angry because their internet's down and they're blaming everything but the actual problem. That's the situation. Your task is to fix the problem and calm them down.
Whoa, that's a lot to handle. So what actions would you take in that situation?
The first thing is to really listen to them. Let them vent. Then let them know you understand they're frustrated. And then calmly explain each step you're taking to figure out what's wrong. If your first fix doesn't work, try to offer other solutions.
So it's about staying calm, explaining things clearly, and showing them you're in control, even if they're not. What about the result part of the story?
Well, ideally, you fix the problem and the customer's happy, even if they started off angry. But even if it doesn't end perfectly, you can talk about what you learned from the experience.
That's a great point. It turns something that could be negative into a learning experience, and interviewers always like that.
Exactly. The STAR method is like a secret weapon for turning those tricky questions into a chance to show off how good you are at solving problems and communicating.
Okay, I feel way more prepared to handle those scenarios now. But even with all this prep, every company's different, right? So how do you make sure your answers are what they're looking for?
You're right, you can't just give the same answers to every company. That's where research is super important.
Research. Like, should I be checking out their website and finding out what their CEO's favorite coffee is?
Haha, maybe not that intense. But spending some time on their website, seeing what they post on social media, even looking at recent news articles about them, all that shows you've done your homework.
Okay, so it's not about memorizing facts. It's about showing you're genuinely interested in them.
You got it. When they ask, what do you know about our company? You can go beyond the basics and mention something specific that caught your eye.
Like, I saw you're really committed to sustainability, and that's something I care about too.
Perfect. That personal touch shows you're not just applying for any old IT job, you're really interested in what they do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What other questions do companies ask that we need to be ready for?
There's one that trips people up. Why do you want to work here? Again, you can't just give a generic answer about benefits and stuff like that. You got to connect your skills and what you want to do with what they offer.
So instead of saying, your company's awesome, give me a job, you say something like, I'm really excited about your work in cloud computing, and I think my skills in network security would be a great asset to your team.
Exactly. You're showing them how you can help them achieve their goals, not just what they can do for you.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It's all about showing you've done your research, you get what they need, and you're genuinely excited to be there.
You're getting it. Enthusiasm is contagious, you know? If
Okay.
you're genuinely excited about the job, it'll really make a difference.
Okay, I'm feeling pumped up. What's next on our interview prep adventure?
Now we're thinking about the long term. It's not just about getting this job, it's about showing them where you see yourself in the future, your career goals and all that.
Oh, that's a good point. It's like they're not just hiring you for today, they're thinking about your potential.
Exactly. They want to know if what you want to do lines up with the opportunities they have. So when they ask, what are your long-term goals?
Hmm.
Don't be afraid to dream big.
So talk about skills you want to learn, certifications you're thinking about, areas of IT that you find really interesting, all that good stuff.
Yes. But don't just talk about your own wish list. Connect those goals back to the company. Do they have a good training program? Do they encourage their employees to get certified? Mentioning those things shows you've thought about how working there can help you achieve those goals.
So it's like saying, I'm ambitious, and I'm looking for a company that will help me grow.
Exactly. And it leads into another common question. Where do you see yourself in 2 or 3 years? Now, this one can be tough, especially when you're just starting out.
Yeah, when you're still trying to figure out what you want to do in this whole huge world of IT.
Right. You don't need to have every single step planned out, but it's good to show them you've thought about it,
Mhm.
talk about the skills you want to learn, the responsibilities you'd like to have, and the impact you want to make, hopefully within their company, of course.
It's about showing you're driven and you have a vision for your future, even if the details might change along the way.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe the interview itself will give you some new ideas about your career path. The important thing is to be open to learning and growing.
We've covered so much, the tech stuff, the people skills, those scenario questions, company research. But there's one big thing we haven't talked about yet.
Yes. The question everyone hates: salary expectations.
Yeah, that one's always awkward. Luckily, this guide has some tips on how to answer it without, like, totally freezing up.
It's important to remember it's not a trick question. It's a chance for you to show what you're worth and make sure you get paid fairly. The key is to be prepared.
Okay, so no, just throwing out random numbers based on what my friend's cousin supposedly makes.
Definitely not. Do your research. Websites like Glassdoor and Indeed can help you see what people in similar roles are making in your area. And don't forget to think about your own experience, skills, and anything special you bring to the table.
So you're going in with real information, not just hoping for the best. But how do you actually answer the question when they ask it?
There are a few ways to go about it. One is to say you want to learn more about the job before talking about salary, especially if it's early in the interview.
That makes sense. You don't want to commit to a number before you know exactly what the job is. But what if they really want you to give them a number right then?
Well, then you can give them a salary range based on what you found in your research, but make sure you say that it can change depending on the details of the job.
So it's not about being demanding. It's about having the right information and being open to talking about it.
You got it. And don't forget, salary isn't everything. Think about the whole package: benefits, vacation time, opportunities to learn and grow. All that stuff is part of your compensation too.
That's a good point. It's not just about the money. It's about the whole value of the job. Wow, we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive. I feel like I've gone through IT boot camp or something.
It's been quite the journey, right? We've talked about everything from the technical stuff to those important soft skills, how to handle those scenario questions, researching the company, and even how to talk about salary.
Seriously, I think we should offer this as a pre-interview pep talk.
Maybe we should. But really, knowing all this and practicing these strategies will make you feel way more confident and prepared when you go into that interview.
Okay, before we wrap things up, let's leave our listener with something to think about. We've talked about how to nail the interview, but what about the bigger picture? AI is changing the tech world so fast. What skills do you think will be the most important for IT support people in the future?
Yeah, that's a really big question. It feels like AI is going to change everything, even what it means to be in IT support.
It's definitely a game changer, but I think the important thing is It's not about AI replacing us. It's about learning to work with AI.
Oh, I like that. So instead of being scared of robots taking over, we should be thinking about how to be the best human AI team out there. But what does that actually look like? I mean, in the real world? Well, just think. AI is already doing a lot of those basic tasks, like answering simple support questions or resetting passwords. That frees up IT people to focus on those really tough problems that need human creativity and thinking.
So skills like problem solving, critical thinking, being able to adapt those become even more important in a world with AI.
Hmm.
You can't just follow a script anymore. You got to be able to think on your feet and come up with solutions that AI can't.
Exactly. And we can't forget about communication. You'll be explaining what AI is doing to people who aren't tech experts. You might work with developers to improve those AI systems. You might even be training them. Being able to translate between tech and people, that's going to be a super valuable skill.
That's so interesting. So the IT support role, it becomes more strategic, right? It's about preventing problems before they happen, not just reacting to them. And you need strong communication skills to bridge the gap between humans and machines.
Exactly. So if you're willing to embrace change, stay curious, and keep learning, you'll be ready for whatever happens in IT support in the future. And while those technical skills are changing, don't forget about the soft skills. Those are changing too.
That's right. It's not like AI is suddenly going to make things like empathy and emotional intelligence useless. In fact, I think those skills will be even more important as we work more with machines.
Absolutely. Think about it. When someone's frustrated with a tech issue, they often just want someone to understand, to reassure them, to connect with them on a human level. I don't care how advanced AI gets, it's not going to be able to replace that.
So all those skills we talked about, active listening, calming people down, building relationships, those are going to be really important for IT pros who want to succeed in a world with AI. You're not just fixing the technology, you're fixing the whole experience.
You got it. And that brings me to something that I don't think people talk about enough, the importance of creativity in IT support.
Creativity. Wait, really? I always thought that was more for like artists and musicians, not IT people.
A lot of people think that. But actually, IT support is full of creative challenges. Like, you might have to find a workaround for a system that's not working right, or come up with a solution when you don't have all the tools you need, or explain some complicated tech thing in a way that anyone could understand.
Okay, yeah, now that you say it, I can see how creativity is important. It's like you're always having to think outside the box and find new ways to solve problems.
Exactly. And that's where being curious and willing to try new things comes in. Don't be afraid to experiment, even if it doesn't always work out. Every time something doesn't work, you learn something new.
So the IT support person of the future is like a mix of technical skills, people skills, and creative problem solving. Sounds like a pretty exciting time to be in IT.
It really is. But with everything changing so fast, it's really important for IT people to stay ahead of the curve. That means making learning and growing a top priority.
Okay, so no more binge watching TV shows instead of learning new skills.
Well, maybe a little less binge watching. But seriously, there are so many awesome resources out there. Online courses, certifications, conferences, workshops. There's something for everyone.
It can be kind of overwhelming, though. Where do you even start?
Start by figuring out what you don't know and what you want to learn. Are you interested in cloud computing or cybersecurity? There are a ton of resources out there for specific interests.
Okay, so have a plan. Don't just randomly click on any tech course you see.
Right. And don't forget about other people. Joining online forums, going to meetups. Those are great ways to learn from others, get advice, and stay motivated.
It's like having a group of tech friends to support you and help you when things get tough. I love
It's
it.
so important. We're all in this together. And speaking of support, before we wrap up, what's the one piece of advice you would give to our listener who's getting ready for that big interview?
That's a good question. What's the secret to standing out and getting that dream IT support job?
I think the most important thing is to be yourself. Don't try to be someone you're not. Show your personality. Let your passion for technology come through and be genuinely curious about the job and the company.
It's like you're not just selling your skills, you're selling yourself. And the best way to do that is to be real and let your enthusiasm show.
Exactly. They're not looking for a robot who can just recite technical stuff. They want someone who's going to be a great part of their team. And remember, an interview goes both ways. You're checking them out too, not just the other way around.
So ask good questions, be part of the conversation, and make sure it feels like a good fit for both of you.
Exactly. In the end, finding the right job is more important than just finding any job.
That's such great advice.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've officially covered everything you need to know to not just survive, but really succeed in IT support.
It's been awesome diving deep into this with you.
And to our listener, good luck with your interview. You've got this.
Absolutely. You're smart, you're capable, and you're passionate about tech. Go show them what you can do.
And if you ever need some inspiration or want to connect with other people who love tech, you know where to find us.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
That's a wrap.